Corporate governance, framework, necessity, and consequences of failure. My name is Egan Koki Edwards. This presentation critically evaluates whether corporate governance should be viewed merely as a compliance requirement or as a strategic imperative central to sustainable, valuable creation. Drawing on agency theory, stakeholder theory, and contemporary governance reforms, the analysis demonstrates that government structures significantly influence strategic decisions, risk management, financial transparency, and organizational resilience. And to the introduction and context, corporate governance refers to the system of rules, practice, and arrangement through which corporations are directed and controlled. It defines the distribution of rights and responsibilities among stakeholders, boards, management, and other shareholders, ensuring accountability and transparency. A central debate in governance concerns shareholder primacy versus stakeholder accountability. The shareholder model prioritizes maximizing financial returns, while the stakeholder model recognizes broader obligations to employees, communities, and the environment. Theoretical framework. Agency theory explains governance as mechanisms to mitigate conflict between shareholders and managers. Without oversight, managers may pursue personal interests, creating agency costs. Now, governance mechanisms such as independent boards and performance-linked compensation reduce these conflicts. Stakeholder theory broadens accountability beyond shareholders, arguing that firms must create value for multiple stakeholders to remain legitimate and sustainable. Stewardship theory suggests managers can act as responsible stewards when governance structures promote trust alongside accountability. ESQ integration further strengthens this framework by embedding environmental, social, and governance considerations into strategic decision making. Why governance matters? Key drivers. Corporate governance is strategically necessary for several reasons. First, it mitigates agency costs and fraud risks by strengthening oversight and internal controls. Secondly, it builds investor and public trust, enhancing access to capital and reputational stability. Third, it aligns firms with global standards such as Sarbanes-Oxley Act and the UK Corporate Governance Code, which promote transparency and board effectiveness. Framework for implementation. Effective governance operates through structured mechanisms. Board independence, diversity, enhanced objectivity, and strategic oversight. Audit and Risk Committee strengthens financial integrity and risk monitoring. Executive compensation aligned with long-term performance and ethical metrics reduces short-termism. Integrated reporting frameworks demonstrate governance transparency in practice. For example, Unilever integrates sustainability indicators into executive remuneration and reporting structures, aligning financial and ESQ performance. Such frameworks show how governance structures influence organizational behavior. Impact on key organizational decisions. Governance frameworks significantly shape strategic and operational decisions. In strategic planning, boards oversee long-term direction, capital allocations, and risk appetite. Diverse and independent boards enhance innovation and resilience. In financial reporting, governance strengthens transparency, reducing information asymmetric and cost of capital. In mergers and acquisitions, independent directors ensure objectives, due diligence, and alignment with strategic goals. Governance also shapes crisis management and ethical responses. Firms with robust oversight structures respond more to regulatory investigations, operational disruptions, and reputational threats. Thus, governance is embedded in everyday strategic decision making rather than existing as a separate compliance function. Consequences of governance failure. Governance failures cascade across organizations. Strategically, weak oversight results in poor decisions and loss of direction. Financially, firms face fines, stock price decline, and increased cost of capital. Reputationally, stakeholders' trust erodes, affecting brand value and talent retention. The emissions scandal involving Volkswagen AG illustrates how compliance failures led to billions in penalties and long-term reputational damage. Similarly, misconduct and Wells Fargo exposed systematic governance weakness, damaging public trust and triggering regulatory sanctions. Failures do not remain isolated. They affect strategy, finance, culture, and competitive positioning simultaneously. Synthesis and managerial implications. Corporate governance must be viewed as dynamic rather than static. Governance structures require continuous monitoring, adaptation, and leadership commitment. This implies that boards must proactively review risks, frameworks, and ESQ integration rather than react only after crises occur. For managers, this means fostering an ethical culture that supports transparency and whistleblower protection. For organizations, it requires embedding governance into strategic formulation and performance measurement systems. Governance effectiveness depends on only on formal rules but also on leadership behavior and organizational culture. In conclusion, effective corporate governance is far more than regulatory compliance. It is strategic imperative that aligns managerial incentives, strengthens oversight, and balances shareholder and stakeholder interests. Theoretical foundations, agency theory, stakeholder theory, and stewardship theory demonstrate the necessity of governance mechanisms in reducing conflict and promoting sustainable value creation. Ultimately, governance stands at the core ethical leadership, financial stability, and long-term competitiveness. Organizations that embed governance into strategic decision-making enhance resilience, stakeholder trust, and sustainable performance in an increasingly transparent global economy. That's all for corporate governance. Thank you.